The great chamber of the Galactic Council had stood for 15,000 years. Its walls were made of living crystal that grew 1 inch every century. Its floors held the footprints of 1,000,000 diplomats from 10,000 worlds. Here in this sacred place, the peace of the galaxy was maintained through words alone. No species had raised weapons against another in all that time. This was the law, this was the way, and everyone believed it would last forever. Ambassador Elelina Vasquez stood at the human delegation's platform, watching the proceedings with tired eyes. Humanity had joined the council 200 years ago, and in that time they had learned to be patient. They had learned to smile when other species called them primitive. They had learned to nod politely when ancient races dismissed their ideas without consideration. Today's session was about mining rights in a distant sector. The Vulari Dominion wanted exclusive access. 3 smaller species objected. The council would debate for weeks and reach a compromise that satisfied no one. This was how things worked. Elena checked her messages during a break-in the proceedings. What she read made her blood turn to ice. The message came from Governor Thomas Chen on the colony world of New Helsinki. His words were broken and desperate. Valkyrie ships had appeared without warning. They had surrounded the primary school during morning assembly. They had taken every child between the ages of 5 and 12. 847 children gone. Elelina read the message 3 times. Her hands did not shake, her face did not change. She had been a diplomat for 30 years and she knew how to hide her feelings, but inside her chest, something very old and very dangerous began to wake up. She forwarded the message to Earth with a single note: advise. The response came in 11 minutes. It contained only 3 words: we are coming. Elelina did not know exactly what that meant, but she knew it meant something terrible for whoever had taken those children. The council session resumed. The Valkyrie high prowlet, a creature named Voreth, with scales of deep purple and eyes like yellow fire, was speaking about resource allocation. He seemed very pleased with himself. Elelina watched him and wondered if he knew what his people had done. She decided it did not matter. When Voreth finished speaking, Elelina requested the floor. This was unusual. Humans rarely spoke in council sessions. They had learned that their words were usually ignored, so they saved them for important moments. Council speaker, an ancient being made of living light, granted her request. Elelina walked to the center of the chamber. 10,000 representatives watched her from their platforms. Some were curious, most were bored. Humans were not interesting to them. 3 hours ago, Elelina said, her voice steady and clear, military vessels belonging to the Valkyrie Dominion attacked a human colony world. They did not come for resources or territory, they came for our children. A murmur passed through the chamber. Several representatives leaned forward in their seats. 847 children were taken from their school. The youngest is 5 years old, the oldest is 12. They were loaded onto transport ships and taken into Valkyrie space. Hippelvoroth rose from his platform. His yellow eyes showed no surprise. He had known, of course he had known. These accusations are serious, Vor said smoothly, but I must point out that the human colony was established in a sector that the Valkyrie Dominion has legitimate claims to. The children are being relocated for their own safety while the Territorial dispute is resolved. Elena stared at him. Relocated. Yes, they will be cared for in proper facilities. They will receive education appropriate to galactic citizens. When the dispute is settled, they may be returned. Vor smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth, considered a temporary custody arrangement. The chamber was silent. Elena looked around at the thousands of faces watching her. She saw concern on some, she saw indifference on many. She saw satisfaction on the faces of the Valkyrie delegation. You are using our children as hostages, Elena said, to force us to give up our legal claim to a colony we have held for 80 years. Such harsh words, Voreth replied. We prefer to think of it as motivation for reasonable negotiation. The council speaker floated forward. This matter will require investigation. The council will convene a special hearing in accordance with established procedures. When Elena asked, the schedule is quite full. Perhaps in 6 months we can 6 months. These matters require proper consideration. Evidence must be gathered. Witnesses must be interviewed. The rights of all parties must be protected. Elena looked at the speaker. She looked at Voreth. She looked at the vast chamber full of species who had kept their peace for 15,000 years and had forgotten what it cost. I understand, she said quietly. I must consult with my government. She returned to her platform. Her aides surrounded her, speaking in urgent whispers. She ignored them all. She was composing a message to Earth, and she was choosing her words very carefully. 12 hours later, Elena requested the floor. Again, the chamber was fuller this time. Word had spread about the incident with the human children. Many representatives were curious to see how the primitive humans would handle their humiliation. Would they beg? Would they cry? Would they offer to give up their colony in exchange for their young ones? Elena walked to the center of the chamber. She did not look at Voreth. She addressed the entire council. I have consulted with my government, she said. I have been authorized to deliver the following message. She took a breath. Humanity formally requests the immediate return of all children taken from New Helsinki colony. This request is made to the Valkyrie Dominion directly, not through council arbitration. Vor laughed. And if we refuse this request, what will you do? You have no fleet. You dismantled your weapons when you joined the council. You made yourselves harmless. He spread his arms wide. This is what you wanted, is it not? To be peaceful species. Well, now you see the cost of peace. The strong take what they want and the weak accept what they are given. Elena did not respond to him. She continued speaking to the council. You have 72 hours to return our children unharmed. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request subject to council procedure. This is a statement of fact. Or what? Voreth demanded. What will you do, human? Elena finally looked at him. Her eyes were calm and cold. Nothing, she said. We will do nothing to you, but we will come for our children, and we will take them back, and anyone who stands between us and our children will learn why we chose to hide what we really are. She turned and walked back to her platform. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions. The speaker called for order. Voreth was laughing and pointing at the human delegation. They are bluffing, he announced. They have nothing. Check their space if you doubt me. They have cargo ships and passenger liners. They have science vessels and mining Platforms, they have nothing that can threaten anyone, but some of the older representatives were not laughing. Some of them were watching the human delegation with strange expressions. These were beings who had lived for thousands of years, who had seen many things that younger species had forgotten. One of them, a Morphine elder, whose body was like twisted silver, leaned close to his aide and whispered, "When did the humans stop being what they were?" The aide did not understand the question. Before they joined the council, the elder continued, "The humans were warriors, fierce ones. They fought each other constantly for their entire history. War was in their blood, in their bones, in their very nature. And then, centuries ago, they suddenly decided to be peaceful. They dismantled their weapons, they banned their soldiers, they became harmless, they evolved." The aide said they grew beyond their violent past. The elder shook his head slowly. No species evolves that quickly. No species changes its fundamental nature in a single generation. He watched the human delegation leaving the chamber. They'd not stop being warriors, they hid it. The question is, why did they hide it? And what happens now that they have a reason to stop hiding? In human space, a message was spreading through channels that most species did not know existed. It reached retired soldiers who had officially never served in any military. It reached engineers who had spent decades designing ships that were never meant to carry cargo. It reached factories hidden beneath mountains and stations concealed in the darkness between stars. The message was simple: our children have been taken, come home. Bring everything, and all across human space. People who had been waiting 200 years for this moment began to move. A new Helsinki. Governor Chen stood in the empty schoolyard. The swing still moved gently in the wind. Abandoned backpacks lay scattered on the ground. A child's drawing of a purple alien was stuck to a fence, left behind. In the chaos, Chen had received the message from Earth. He did not know exactly what was coming, but he knew his people well enough to understand that the Valkyrie had made a terrible mistake. They had touched humanity's children, and there were some things that even 15,000 years of peace could not protect you from. For 3 days after Ambassador Vasquez delivered her warning, the galaxy watched human space with mild curiosity. Sensor stations on the border reported normal traffic patterns. Human cargo ships continued their routes. Research vessels moved between stations. Everything seemed ordinary. The Valkyrie Dominion used this time to strengthen their defenses. Hyped Voroth ordered additional ships to guard the facility where the children were being held. He gave interviews to Galactic news networks laughing about human weakness. He described how the children were being educated to understand their proper place in the galactic order. The humans will learn, Vor said to the cameras. They will accept our terms eventually. They have no choice. They are a peaceful species now. They gave up their weapons. They gave up their warriors. All they can do is talk, and talk means nothing without power behind it. The council continued its normal operations. The special hearing on the new Helsinki incident was scheduled for 5 months away. Representatives from various species offered to mediate the dispute. Everyone assumed this would end with a negotiated settlement. The humans would give up their colony. The Valkyrie would return most of the children. Some would be kept as guarantees of future good. Behavior, this was how things worked in civilized space. On the fourth day, every human ship in galactic space began moving toward the border. Thousands of vessels, all heading home. At maximum speed, freighters abandoned. Their cargo, passenger liners canceled. Their schedules, research vessels left. Experiments incomplete, the Galactic. News networks reported this with confusion. Were the humans retreating? Were they abandoning their place in galactic society? Some commentators suggested this was a tantrum, a childish response to not getting their way. Voreth appeared on the networks again. Let them run home, he said. Let them hide in their little corner of space. They will come back eventually, begging for our forgiveness, and when they do, we will set the terms. The Morphin elder who had spoken in the council chamber watched these broadcasts from his private quarters. He had lived for 9,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had watched civilizations burn themselves out from pride and stupidity, and something about the human withdrawal made his old heart beat faster. With fear, he sent a message to the council speaker. It said, something is wrong. The humans are to come. I advise we send observation ships to the border. The speaker agreed. A small fleet of console observer vessels jumped to the edge of human space. What they found there made no sense. The border was sealed not by ships or stations, but by something else, some kind of energy field that their sensors could not penetrate. The humans had built a wall around their entire territory, and they had built it in 3 days. The technology required for such a barrier did not officially exist. This is impossible, the lead observer reported. They should not be able to do this. They do not have the scientific capability. They never filed patents for this technology. They never published research papers. We have seen their ships, their stations, their entire civilization. There's nothing that could produce this kind of barrier. The Morphin elder received this report and understood what it meant. The humans had been hiding things. The peaceful traders and artists and explorers had been keeping secrets for 200 years. He tried to warn the council. He requested an emergency session, but before the session could convene, the sensors at the galactic rim detected something emerging from human space. It started as a ripple in space itself. Then the ripple became a tear. Then the tear became a wound in reality through which ships began to pour. Not dozens of ships, not hundreds, thousands. They came through jump points that should not exist, using methods of faster than light travel that the council had never seen. They moved in perfect formation, each vessel exactly where it should be, every movement coordinated with impossible precision. The council observer ships sent back images before they were ordered to retreat. What those images showed changed everything. Dreadnoughts the size of small moons, bristling with weapons that defied analysis, carriers launching swarms of fighter craft that moved like living things, cruisers and destroyers and support vessels, all built from materials that sensor beams could not identify. A war fleet beyond anything the galaxy had seen in 15,000 years, and at the front of this armada, a single ship that made all the others look small. It was shaped like a spear, pointed and deadly, and its hull was black as the void between stars. On its side, painted in letters 50 meters tall, were the words Earth's Children, Fleet. Admiral James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of this vessel, watching the tactical displays. He was 73 years old. He had trained in secret militaries that officially did not exist. He had commanded ships in exercises that the civilian government never knew about. He had waited his entire life for this moment, hoping it would never come. Knowing that it might open a channel, he said, "All frequencies, let everyone hear." The communications officer made it so. "This is Fleet Admiral James Okonkwo of the United Human Defense Force. I'm addressing this message to the Galactic Council, the Valkyrie Dominion, and all species within range of this broadcast." He paused, letting the words sink in. 200 years ago, humanity joined your council. We came to you as friends. We showed you our best face. We shared our art, our music, our dreams. We traded fairly. We explored peacefully. We made ourselves small and harmless so that you would not fear us. The tactical display showed the fleet continuing its advance. They would reach Valkyrie space in 18 hours. We did this because we hoped you were better than us. We hoped that a galaxy without war was possible. We hoped that if we buried our worst nature deep enough, we might forget that it ever existed. On every world that received this broadcast, beings stopped what they were doing and listened. In the council chamber, representatives stood frozen at their platforms. In his command center, Hyperold Vorith watched with yellow eyes gone wide. "You took our children," Okono continued. "You stole them from their families. You called it relocation. You called it education. You used them as bargaining chips in your political games." His voice hardened. This was a mistake. The fleet reached the first Valkyrie military installation. It was a fortress station, heavily armed, crewed by thousands of soldiers who had never known real war. They had trained for centuries, running simulations and exercises, never facing an actual enemy. They faced one now. Human ships did not slow down. They did not negotiate. They did not issue demands. They simply opened fire with weapons that the Valkyrie had never imagined. The fortress station lasted 11 minutes, but here was the strange thing. The human weapons did not kill. They disabled. Power systems failed. Weapons went dark. Communications cut out. Life support remained active. The Valkyrie crew found themselves floating in a dead station, alive and unharmed, surrounded by technology that no longer worked. "We could kill you," Okono broadcast as his fleet moved past the disabled station. "We have the power to end your civilization in a single day. Every ship, every station, every world. We could glass your planets and salt your suns and erase every trace that you ever existed." The fleet reached the second fortress, then the third, then the fourth. Each one fell in minutes. Each one was left disabled but intact. But we are not here for revenge. We are not here for conquest. We are here for our children. Give them back to us, and this ends. Stand in our way, and we will go through you. Harm them, and there is nothing in this universe that will protect you from what comes next. Hyperold Vorith watched his defensive network collapse like a house of cards. In a hurricane, 12 fortress stations disabled him for hours. His main battle fleet was still scrambling to organize. They had not fought a real battle in 15,000 years. They did not know how, but Vorith was cunning, and he still had leverage. The children were in a heavily fortified facility on a moon deep in Valkyrie territory. It would take the humans days to reach it. He had time to negotiate. He opened a channel to the human fleet. Admiral Okonkwo, he said, I see you have surprised us. Very impressive, but let us be reasonable. You cannot fight the entire Dominion. You cannot fight the Council, even with your hidden fleet. You are one species against thousands. Akono's face appeared. On his screen, the human's eyes were hard as stone. We are not fighting the Dominion, Akono said. We are not fighting the Council. We are coming for our children. Everyone else has a choice: get out of our way or be removed from it, and if the children are harmed in the process, Vor asked, letting the threat hang in the air. Akono was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very quiet. High Plet, do you know why we hid our weapons for 200 years? Vorith did not answer. Because we were afraid of ourselves. We were afraid of what we might do if we ever had a reason to use them again. We are not a peaceful species, HFY Prowlet. We are a violent, dangerous, terrible species that learned to wear a mask of peace. And you have just given us permission to take that mask off. He leaned forward. If you harm one hair on one child's head, there will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will be no surrender accepted. We will unmake you. We will hunt your bloodline to the last generation. We will make your species. Valkyrie main battle fleet assembled at the corridor, the only stable route into the heart of Dominion space. They gathered 5,000 warships, the largest military force assembled in 15,000 years. Admiral Thesson herself commanded from the flagship Unconquerable, a vessel that had been the pride of the Dominion for 3 centuries. Feckin was old for her species, with scales faded too pale gray and eyes that had seen much. Unlike Vor, she did not underestimate the humans. She had studied their history before they joined the Council. She knew what they had been capable of, and she suspected that whatever they had hidden for centuries was far worse than anything in the historical records. But she was a soldier, and she had her orders: defend the corridor, stop the human advance. By time for negotiations, the human fleet arrived 6 hours later. Then watched them come on her tactical display. They moved with perfect coordination, every ship in its proper place, every formation exactly where it should be. Her own fleet, despite centuries of training, looked clumsy. Comparison. They had practiced for war without ever understanding what war really meant. She opened a channel to the human flagship. Admiral Okonkwo, she said, I am Admiral then of the Valkyrie Defense Force. I wish to speak with you before this battle begins. Akono's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired, but determined. I'm listening, he said. I want you to know that I oppose the taking of your children. Hyped Vorith acted without military authorization. Many in the Dominion believe he has made a terrible mistake. He has. I am asking you to consider a peaceful resolution. The children can be returned. Vorith can be punished. There is no need for more violence. Akono was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Admir, I believe you are sincere, but I have my orders and I will carry them out. Withdraw your fleet from the corridor and allow us to pass. Your ships will not be harmed. Your crews will not be killed, but we are going to reach that facility, and we are going to take back our children. And if I cannot withdraw, if my orders require me to stand here, then I will go through you. I will disable every ship in your fleet. I will leave your crews alive but helpless, and I will continue on my way. The closed her eyes. How can you be so certain of victory? You have 4,000 ships, I have 5,000. Akono actually smiled, though there was no humor in it. Admiral, the ships you see are what we chose to show you. They are not all that we have. They are not even close to all that we have. Please, for the sake of your crews, stand down. The looked at her tactical display. She looked at the confident formations of her fleet. She thought about the thousands of young soldiers who had never seen real combat, who believed they were invincible because they had never been tested. She made her decision. I cannot withdraw without orders, she said, but I will give my fleet one instruction. Do not fire first. Let the humans make the first move. Let us see what they actually do before we commit ourselves to a battle we may not survive. A wise choice, Akono said. Thank you, Admiral. The channel closed. The human fleet advanced. The Valkyrie fleet held its position. Thousands of ships faced each other across the void, weapons charged, crews tense with fear and anticipation. Then the humans did something unexpected. They split their formation. Half the fleet continued toward the corridor, toward the Valkyrie line, but the other half simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone. No jump flash, no drive signature, they were just gone. They stared at her display. Where did they go? Find them. Her sensor officers frantically searched. They found nothing. 2,000 human warships had disappeared without a trace. Admiral, one of her officers shouted, contact on the far side of the corridor. The human ships there already through. The felt cold fear crawl up her spine. The humans had not gone around her fleet. They had not used any jump method her sensors could detect. They had simply appeared on the other side as if distance meant nothing to them. She was not blocking their path. She had never been blocking their path. The entire battle line was meaningless. The remaining human fleet reached her position. They did not fire. They simply flew past, moving through gaps in her formation that appeared as if by magic. Her ships tried to track them, tried to find firing solutions. But the humans were always somewhere else, always one step ahead. In 30 minutes, the entire human fleet had passed through the Thene corridor without firing a single shot. Fee sat in her command chair, surrounded by 5,000 ships that had done nothing and understood that everything she thought she knew about warfare was wrong. She sent a message to High Pravorath. They are coming. I could not stop them. I do not think anyone can stop them. Return the children before it is too late. Vor received this message and dismissed it as cowardice. He had prepared his own defenses. The facility where the children were held was on a moon called Velkar Prime, deep in the heart of Dominion territory. It was surrounded by orbital platforms, ground-based weapons, shield generators, and a full garrison of his most loyal soldiers. Let the humans come. He would show them that the Valkyrie were not cowards like Theon. The human fleet arrived at Velkar Prime 12 hours later. They spread out around the moon in a perfect sphere, covering every angle of approach and retreat. Then they waited. Akono sent a final broadcast. Hyper, we are here for our children. You have 1 hour to surrender them peacefully. This is your last opportunity to end this without further consequences. Vorith responded by activating all his defensive systems. Orbital platforms locked onto human ships, ground weapons charged, the shield around the facility powered to maximum. You want them, Voreth. Broadcast back, come and take them, but know this, if your soldiers breach this facility, I will give the order to eliminate the hostages. You will save nothing, you will gain nothing, and you will have started a war that will consume your species. 1 hour passed. Humans did not attack. 2 hours passed. Still nothing. 3 hours passed. Vor began to wonder if they were hesitating, if they were afraid, if his bluff had worked. Then deep underground in the facility, the lights flickered and went out. The guards stationed at the children's dormitory spun around, weapons raised, searching for threats. Emergency lighting activated, casting everything in red. The air vents had stopped circulating, the doors had sealed shut. Something moved in the shadows. Who's there? A guard shouted. Identify yourself. A voice came from everywhere and nowhere. We are what you were warned about. The guards opened fire. Their weapons did nothing. Pulse blast hit walls, floors, ceiling, but never their targets. Something was in the room with them, something that moved faster than they could track, something that their eyes refused to focus on. One by one the guards collapsed, not dead, sleeping. Something had touched them and simply turned them off, like deactivating a machine. Within 2 minutes every guard in the dormitory level was unconscious. On the floor, the children huddled together in their cells, terrified and confused. They had been prisoners for weeks. They had been told that their families had abandoned them, that no one was coming to save them, that they belonged to the Dominion. Now, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a human woman in black armor, her face hidden behind a featureless mask. She moved with quiet grace, checking each cell, counting heads. All present, she said into her communicator. 847 souls. All alive, all unharmed. Copy that. Shadow 1, extraction in progress. The woman pressed a button in every cell. Door opened simultaneously. The children stared at her, too shocked to move. She removed her mask. Underneath she had brown skin, kind eyes, and a gentle smile. My name is Captain Maria Santos, she said. I'm from Earth. Your parents sent us to bring you home. Is everyone ready to go? A small boy, no more than 6 years old, stepped forward. His face was streaked with tears, but his voice was strong. They said no one would come for us, he said. They said we were alone. Captain Santos knelt down to his level. They lied, she said. Simply, we would never leave you. We would burn the galaxy down before we left you. That's what humans do for our children. Above them on the surface, Hyperdvorith was receiving frantic reports. Intruders in the facility. Guards neutralized. Security systems offline. The children's location compromised. He screamed. Odors sent reinforcements. Kill the intruders. Do not let them take the hostages. But no reinforcements came. The hallways were full of sleeping guards. The elevators had stopped working. The communication system was full of static. And then on every screen in his command center, message appeared. We have our children. We are leaving. Do not pursue. Vor slammed his fist on the console. No. This is not over. Track their extraction route. Find out how they got in. Hi. Prolet, one of his officers said quietly. We cannot track them. We cannot find them. They are simply gone. 10 km underground in tunnels that had not existed in Argo. Captain Santos led 847 ch. The Galaxy Council's captured. Human children. Humanity broke 15,000. Years of Peace Part 4. The Children of New Helsinki returned to Earth on a bright spring morning. Thousands of people lined the streets of Geneva to watch the transports descend. Parents who had not slept in weeks pushed to the front of the crowds, desperate for their first glimpse of sons and daughters they had feared they would never see again. When the transport doors opened and the children came walking down the ramps, the crowd made a sound that was not quite cheering and not quite weeping. It was something deeper, something primal. The relief of a species that had recovered what it valued most. The reunions lasted hours. Families held each other and refused to let go. News cameras captured every moment, broadcasting the images to every human colony and every world in the galaxy that cared to watch. Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched these scenes. From her office, she allowed herself 5 minutes to feel the joy and relief that everyone else was feeling. Then she put those emotions away and prepared for what came next. The council had requested an emergency session. They wanted answers. They wanted explanations. They wanted to know where humanity's hidden fleet had come from and what else humanity had been hiding. Alina knew that this session would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. She also knew exactly what she was going to say. She arrived at the council chamber alone. No aides, no security, just one woman walking into a room full of 10,000 species who had just watched her people break 15,000 years of peace. The chamber was silent as she took her place at the central podium. The council speaker floated nearby, but even that ancient being seemed uncertain how to begin. Alina began for them. I know what you want to ask, she said. You want to know about our fleet. You want to know how we built it without your knowledge. You want to know if we are a threat to the peace you have maintained for so long. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. I will answer all of these questions, but first I want to show you something. She activated a holographic display. Images filled the chamber, not of ships or weapons, but of documents, council proceedings from 200 years ago when humanity first applied for membership. When we joined you, Alina said, we submitted to your inspection teams. They visited our worlds. They examined our technology. They reported that we had dismantled our military forces and were no longer a threat to galactic peace. This was true. She advanced the display to show internal council communications from that same period. What you did not know was that we also submitted to our own inspection. We studied you. We analyzed your council. We watched how you treated new members, how you resolved disputes, how you protected the weak and punished the strong. More documents appeared. Reports from human observers stationed throughout the galaxy. We found that your peace was not just. Your council protected those who already had power. Smaller species were exploited. Their resources were taken. Their people were marginalized. When they complained, they were told to wait for hearings that never came. When they protested, they were sanctioned into submission. Chamber grew restless. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked angry, but no one interrupted. We also found something else, Elena continued. We found that many species in this Galaxy have long memories. They remember what life was like before the Council. They remember the wars, the suffering, the chaos. They accept an unjust peace because they fear something worse. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Humanity is young. We do not have those long memories. We joined your council, hoping that peace without justice was better than no peace at all. We buried our weapons and our warriors because we wanted to give you a chance to be better than you are. The display changed again. Now it showed the hidden facilities where humanity's true military had been. Concealed shipyards inside hollowed asteroids, training me's deep beneath mountain ranges, research stations hidden in the frozen outer reaches of the solar system. We never dismantled our fleet. We hid it. We improved it. We developed technologies beyond anything you have seen because we suspected that someday we would need them. HFY rose from his platform, his yellow eyes blazed with fury. You lied to the Council. You violated the terms of your membership. Everything you have said and done for centuries has been based on deception. Alina turned to face him directly. Yes, she said simply, we lied. We deceived. We hid who we really are. She gestured at the images of the Valkyrie detention facility. And you kidnapped our children and used them as hostages in a territorial dispute. Tell me, Hippolyte, which is the greater crime? Voroth sputtered but could not find words. Alina continued, addressing the full council now. I did not come here today to apologize. I came here to explain, and I came here to show you something. The display changed one final time. It showed a timeline, every recorded instance of the Galactic Council failing to protect a vulnerable species, every case where smaller civilizations were exploited by larger ones. Every time this system had worked exactly as it was designed to work, serving the powerful at the expense of the weak. In 15,000 years, Alina said, the Council has mediated thousands of disputes. It has prevented wars between major powers. It has maintained stability across the galaxy, but it has also allowed systematic exploitation of those too small to fight back. It has allowed the strong to take what they want as long as they do it slowly and legally. She looked directly at the council speaker. When the Valkyrie took our children, we asked for immediate action. You scheduled a hearing for 6 months later. When we warned you that we would not wait, you laughed at us. When we came for our children with force, you called it a violation of peace. She shook her head slowly. Your peace is not peace, it is control. It is a system designed to prevent anyone from challenging those who already have power, and it is failing. The Morin elder, who had warned about the humans, rose from his platform. His silver body gleamed in the chamber's light. What would you have us do? He asked. Would you destroy the council? Would you return the galaxy to the wars we ended 15,000 years ago? Is that what humanity wants? Alina turned to him with something like respect. No, she said, we do not want to destroy the council. We want to change it. She gestured, and a new document appeared on the display. It was long and detailed, covering every aspect of galactic governance. This is a proposed charter for a new council, one that protects the rights of all species, not just the powerful ones, one that responds to crises immediately instead of scheduling hearings for 6 months later, one that recognizes that peace without justice is not peace at all. It is just quiet oppression. The chamber erupted in noise, representatives shouted questions, objections, demands. The speaker called for order, but chaos continued, through it all. Elena stood calmly at the podium when the noise finally died down. She spoke. Again, you can accept this charter or you can reject it, but know this. Humanity will not pretend to be harmless. Anymore, we will not hide our true nature to make you comfortable. We will continue to trade and explore and create. Art, we will continue to be the friends and partners we have always been. But we will also protect ourselves and those who cannot protect themselves. We will not allow another species to take our children or anyone else's children ever. Again, she looked around the chamber one last time. You have seen what we can do. You have seen the power we kept hidden for 2 centuries. What you have not seen is what we will do with that power. That is your choice to shape, work with us to build something better in our fleet remains hidden. Continue as you have always continued, and we will be forced to act again. She stepped down from the podium. Humanity will be in our territory, working on our own affairs. When you are ready to discuss real change, you know where to find us. She walked out of the chamber, leaving 10,000 representatives in stunned silence behind her. The charter she had proposed remained on the display, waiting to be read, waiting to be considered, waiting to become either the foundation of a new galactic order or just another document ignored by those in power. The choice was no longer in human hands, but humanity had made sure that this time there would be consequences for choosing wrong. The Galaxy Councils captured human children. Humanity broke 15,000 years of peace. Part 5. Humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council on a quiet Tuesday. There were no dramatic speeches, no final warnings, no ceremonial gestures. Human ambassadors simply packed their belongings, boarded their ships, and went home. The border that humanity had sealed during the crisis remained closed. No council ships were permitted to enter human space. No trade agreements were renewed. Technologies that humanity had shared over 2 centuries, medical advances, agricultural improvements, materials, science remained in galactic hands, but no new knowledge would flow outward. Humanity built a wall of silence around itself and waited. The first year was difficult for many species who had depended on human trade. The Kathrani, whose agricultural systems ran on human designed irrigation technology, scrambled to develop alternatives. The Volix Collective, which had built its entire economy around human art and entertainment, faced a cultural crisis. Dozens of smaller civilizations that had relied on humanity as a neutral trading partner found themselves suddenly alone and vulnerable. The Valkyrie Dominion collapsed within 6 months. Hyperold Voreth was arrested by his own people and tried for crimes against galactic stability. The evidence presented at his trial included not just the kidnapping of human children, but decades of corruption, exploitation, and abuse of power. He was sentenced to permanent exile on a barren moon at the edge of Dominion space, but his punishment did not heal the wounds he had caused. Dominion fractured into 3 competing factions, each claiming legitimacy, each blaming the others for the disaster that Vor had brought upon them. Civil war erupted within a year, with thousands dying in battles that achieved nothing. Admiral then, who had tried to warn Voroth and had chosen not to fire on the human fleet emerged as a voice of reason. She gathered the survivors of the old military and proposed a new government, one that would learn from the mistakes of the past and build something better. We were arrogant, she said in a speech that was broadcast across the former Dominion. We believed that our power gave us the right to take what we wanted. The humans showed us that power without wisdom is nothing. They could have destroyed us. They could have killed millions of our people. Instead, they disabled our weapons and walked away. They gave us a chance to become better. Some listened to her words. Others rejected them. The Dominion's future remained uncertain. Meanwhile, in the halls of the Galactic Council, the charter that Ambassador Vasquez had proposed sat on the speaker's desk. Read and reread by thousands of representatives, it called for sweeping changes, immediate response to crises involving children and vulnerable populations, protection for smaller species from exploitation by larger ones, an end to the system of endless delays and procedural manipulation. They had allowed injustice to flourish. Most of the major powers rejected it. Immediately, they had too much to lose. From real reform, they argued that the current system had maintained peace for 15,000 years. That change was dangerous. That humanity was simply trying to seize power for itself, but the smaller species felt differently. Died in the months after humanity's withdrawal. Delegations from dozens of minor civilizations began meeting in secret. They had watched what humanity had done, and they had understood the message: you do not have to accept injustice just because you are weak. You do not have to be silent just because no one will listen. Sometimes the smallest voice can shake the foundations of the greatest power. These delegations began drafting their own version of the human charter. They modified it, improved it, added provisions that reflected their own needs and experiences, and when they were finished, they presented it to the Council not as a proposal from humanity, but as a demand from the species that had been ignored for too long. The major powers refused to consider it. The smaller species withdrew from the Council in response. Within 2 years, the Galactic Council that had stood for 15,000 years began to crack, not from human weapons or human threats, but from the simple realization that the old system no longer worked. The peace that had been maintained through control and fear was giving way to chaos and uncertainty, and through it all, humanity watched and waited. 50 years passed. Ambassador Alelina Vasquez had long since retired. She lived in a small house overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, tending a garden and writing her memoirs. She was 107 years old, white-haired and wrinkled, but her eyes were still sharp and her mind still clear. One morning a message arrived at her house. It came from the new Galactic Assembly, a body that had formed from the ruins of the old council, made up of species that had chosen to build something different. The Assembly had adopted a charter based on the principles humanity had proposed decades ago. They had created systems to protect the vulnerable, respond to crisis, and ensure that no species could exploit another without consequences. Now they wanted to invite humanity back. Delegation arrived 3 days later. 12 representatives from species that had once dismissed humans as primitive and harmless. They were led by a young Morphinini who had been only a child when humanity withdrew. She had grown up hearing stories about the humans, how they had hidden their power for the centuries, how they had broken 15,000 years of peace to save their children, how they had given the galaxy a chance to become better. Alina received them. Her garden, she was too old and tired for formal diplomacy. You have come a long way, she said. Sit down, let me pour you some tea. The Moran woman sat across from her. The other delegates arranged themselves on benches and chairs. Ambassador Vasquez the Moran said, I am Speaker Velith of the Galactic Assembly. I have been authorized to formally invite the United Human Nations to rejoin the Galactic community. Alina poured tea with steady hands. I'm no longer an ambassador, she said. I am just an old woman with a garden. But I am curious, why now? Why? After 50 years, Velith looked at the other delegates, then back at Alina. Because we have finally understood what you were trying to teach us, she said. You did not break the peace because you were violent or warlike. You broke it because you loved your children. You showed us that peace without love is not worth preserving. You showed us that power without compassion is not power at all. It is just cruelty in disguise. Alina sipped her tea. She thought about the children of New Helsinki, now middle-aged adults with children and grandchildren of their own. She thought about Admiral Okonkwo, who had died 10 years ago and been buried with full honors. She thought about all the lives that had been shaped by those few weeks of crisis. Half a century passed. The galaxy has changed, Velith continued. We have changed. The assembly is not perfect, but it is better than what came before. We protect the weak. We respond to injustice. We remember what you taught us. She leaned forward. Will you come back? Elelina set down her teacup. She looked at the young speaker, at the hope in her eyes, at the delegates who waited anxiously for her response. I cannot speak for humanity, Elena said finally. I am just one old woman, but I can tell you what I believe. She smiled, and in that smile was all the warmth and all the steel that had made her such an effective diplomat. I believe that you have learned enough to deserve a second chance, but I also believe that our grandchildren should be the ones to decide whether your grandchildren have earned that chance. This is not my decision to make. Velith nodded slowly. We understand. We are prepared to wait. Good, Alina said, because real change takes time. The galaxy you are building will not be finished in our lifetimes. It may not be finished for centuries, but you have begun, and that is what matters. She stood, and the delegates stood with her. Take this message back to your assembly, Alina said. Tell them that humanity is watching. Tell them that we have not forgotten what we are capable of, but we have also not forgotten what we hope to become. Tell them that someday, when the time is right, we will return, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners, ready to build something that our ancestors could only dream of. She shook Velith's hand. 15,000 years of hollow peace ended when you took our children. Something harder, slower, and more honest is growing in its place. We will be there to see it bloom. The delegates left. Elelina returned to her garden. The sun was setting over the Mediterranean, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere out there beyond the stars, a galaxy was learning to be better. It would take generations. It would require sacrifice and patience and courage. There would be setbacks and failures and moments of despair, but there would also be children, human and alien alike, who would grow up in a universe where justice meant something, where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them, where peace was built on love instead of fear. Elelina smiled and began watering her flowers. The future was uncertain. It had always been uncertain, but for the first time in a very long time, it was also full of hope, and that she thought was